Hello guys, David both here, and it's a beautiful day in Oklahoma. Just ran into a spider web, backing out of it. Oh man, it's like we live in some sort of a maze. Deadly spiders and snakes everywhere. It's crazy. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. You see that spider web? I don't know if you can see it across the trail. Let's see if I can show you. I don't know if you can see it. There. You see it there? You see that? There's a spider web. You can just catch it with the sun. It goes all the way across, straight line, over to the trees. So we're going to go under it. Sometimes I have to use a stick. I have to have like a walking stick, and then I twirl it around and raise it up in front of me and knock down all the spider webs. It looks beautiful, and it's wonderful. It's so beautiful here in Oklahoma. But I guarantee it's really, I've determined it's uninhabitable. You can't really live here in the wild without some serious, preparations, and it's tough, It's probably more preparations that one has to do to live in Oklahoma than there would be like to get ready for a winter in Alaska. Like if you were back in 1800s and you went to Alaska, you'd have to work hard and prepare yourself a cabin, cut down some firewood, have your meat, hanging up, and your canning, and put away your food and everything, get prepared for the winter. Well, if you came here, you were a homesteader or whatever in 1800s in Oklahoma, and you tried to live here, you'd never freeze to death because it doesn't get that cold, but you'd have to prepare your land by clearing the property and getting rid of the bushes and the brush. Man, that spider web was as strong as a rope. It didn't even break. Well, we got off to a negative start. Sorry about that. Well, thought I'd take another walk. I haven't been on a walk for a few days, and I'm getting ready to go look at some more properties. Don't know where. I just know I'm not really able to live here anymore. We'll see where we end up. But I'll miss these walks out here through Oklahoma. I really will. I'll miss this place. I still believe that Oklahoma is probably one of the prettiest places, not the prettiest place I've ever lived. The most beautiful for me. I'm not leaving because it's, because I don't like the beauty here. I do. But there are things that I can't. If I told you, I have explained that there are a lot of bugs and stuff here, but most people, maybe some of you think, wow, that's silly. There ain't that many bugs, Dave. You could live there if you wanted. You wanted to figure it out. Spray your yard with some chemicals or something. I don't know. But I have done that. I've gone to the store and gotten chemicals to kill ticks and bugs and things, and it doesn't really work. And it seems like every month I've got another problem. Now I've got some kind of little bugs that appear to be ticks. They're not quite the same kind that I was dealing with. There were several different kinds I've dealt with. But these seem to be like, they just appear out of nowhere. I'm sitting in my truck with the window open, and I look down and there's one on my arm. I pull it off, throw it out, and I look down, there's another one on my leg or something, and it's just that way. They just appear, and I don't know if they're flying through the wind and landing. But it's just a constant, like every couple seconds I got to pull one off of me and throw it. I don't know where they're coming from. Definitely seem to be mechanical creations, programmed, computer-like, robotic type nanotechnology. It seems like, I don't know that they had these kinds of bugs back in the day. I certainly don't know of any scriptures to talk about mosquitoes or anything like that. I was thinking about, I mentioned this to somebody, a friend of mine, and they said, well, there's locusts. So, because I was saying that Genesis chapter 1 doesn't mention insects or spiders in the creation. Just fish and birds and mammals and things. And they were saying, yeah, but it doesn't say creeping things. Well, I was told that the word creeping thing has to do with, insects or bugs or something. But I looked it up and it just says moving things in reality. And it doesn't have any real, there's no proof, or doesn't seem like it really is talking about insects. So we don't know for sure, but yeah, there were locusts in the days of Jesus, and flies. That's in the Bible, because there was, when Moses led the children of Israel out of Egypt, there were flies and gnats. It said they were plagues. But now see, here's my point. Other than the plagues that the Bible mentions, it doesn't mention these bugs, except for in reference to plagues. So I'm beginning to think that Yahweh created the plagues in his wrath to torture us, And there's a reason. I'm going to do some videos coming, kind of maybe like a series or something, to really dig down deep. Oh my goodness, I almost walked right into that one. I don't know, it won't. Oh, it touched his web, I guess. I didn't mean to. Oh, it broke. Okay. So I'm going to do a series on this whole subject, but I mean, not just about bugs, but a whole in-depth subject about Jacob, his two wives and 2 concubines and 13 children. One was a woman, Diana. And what it all has to, what it means. Who is Israel? Racism. Racism is something that Yahweh had. He believed. The Old Testament is all about, the other nations. Don't let them share in the inheritance of Israel. And some of the wives were jealous. Wouldn't allow the other children of the handmaid to partake of the same thing. But we all assume that Israel were all the chosen, all 12 tribes. And yet, what most people, I don't think, grasp when they're looking at that is that there were 4 women that produced these 12 kids. And the one woman, Rachel, represents the covenant, the woman that Jacob loved. And that represents the new covenant. And her firstborn child was Joseph, and he's the one that gets the promise of a multitude of nations. And the blessings of the dew above and the prosperity and all the blessings. Leah gave birth to Judah, and he got a scepter, the right to rule. But more or less, there's a story in there, something about he didn't really He wasn't really the ruler, but because Reuben slept with his father's concubine or something, he ended up forfeiting it, and it ends up going to Judah. But there's a whole part about how Judah sells Joseph into slavery. And then Joseph goes down into Egypt and comes out a mixed multitude, which was his promise. Joseph's blessing and promise was to be the same promise that Abraham got, which was to be a multitude of nations. So were all 12 tribes blessed? Really? In the case of Judah, he was told he could rule, but almost begrudgingly they allowed him to do it. Like he stole his birthright in a sense, like, you know. And he reigns, but it says only until he comes who has a legal right. And we read that verse in 1 Thessalonians just the other day about the Apostle Paul talking about these individuals that he says crucified the Lord and are against all men, and he says some pretty bad things about this group. Jesus said something about there will be wrath upon this people. Who's he talking about? You know, Jerusalem, the area there where he went to preach, and then he talked about to his disciples, go unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel, only unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And so we've said that the 12 tribes are really every nation on the face of the earth. So I want to dig deep because there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. We've only scratched the surface in the videos that we've been doing. You've got to go back and look at all 4 of the women that produced these kids, because Joseph was the firstborn. Well, then she ended up having Benjamin. And Benjamin ends up staying with Judah and Benjamin. And the Apostle Paul was of the tribe of Benjamin. But so Benjamin was also the son of Rachel. Well, so those are 2 kids. Now, Rachel ended up being not able to have any more kids, so she insisted upon giving Jacob her handmaid, Bilhah, a slave woman. This is all slavery. So she gives Bilhah, and they produce Dan. Now Dan ends up being somebody that's very much talked about in prophecy, perhaps even alluding to the possibility that the Antichrist will come through him. And Dan ends up living on the coast by ships, and wherever he went, he would name the area after himself. So we've got a lot of places throughout Europe, you know, the Danube River, and the Danites, and the Danes, and Denmark, and, you know, Denister, and all these different, even in Ireland, originally, they the country, the sections that we would like call states, districts of a governor or something that they lived under, they were called Dons. Maybe like Donald Trump, you know, I don't know. And his son, what's his son? Boy, I can't even think of that word. Baron, like a baron, which means nothing. I'm just rambling here. But, so 2 of these women were concubines. So now Leah is another covenant. So Jacob wanted Rachel, the covenant of El. But what he got deceived and tricked, and Laban gave him Leah, which is the covenant of Yahweh. So we ended up getting Yahweh's covenant first. And it produced a lot of kids, you know. Most of the kids were produced from the handmaids. Only 2 of them were produced from Rachel. 2 witnesses? Anyone? But the great multitude will come through Joseph, not the other kids. The blessing And everyone who gets a blessing has to get it through Joseph in the end. Not through the covenant of Leah. Even Leah and her children have to, they're going to, remember Joseph said he had a vision or a dream that there were 12 stalks of grain, some translated grain, some wheat, some corn, but it was some kind of grain. And 11 stalks bowed down and worshipped Joseph's stalk. And then he had a dream about 12 stars, and they bowed down to his star. And part of the blessing with Joseph is that he would be the stone. Now, Jesus said, I am the stone that the builders rejected. Well, they rejected Joseph, and they sold him. He was a slave. They sold him. They were jealous. They were jealous of him. Because he came through Rachel. It's a different covenant. The covenant of peace. It was the wife of his love. It was the real arrangement from our Father in heaven. But before that arrangement could come, somebody tricked Jacob and gave him Leah. He had to go through this other covenant. Like I said, most of the children of Israel came from that labor, the slavery. So, there's a lot of allusions here that I'm not going to go into this video. I'm just kind of giving you guys an overview of some of the things we're going to be talking about. But one of the things I find interesting is when you go back into the Sumerian tablets, Enki, when he's making Adam or creating Adam, it wasn't just Enki that made human beings in his own image, right? But he used his sister that put her DNA in there. She ended up being the surrogate. And there ended up being other surrogates. And I'm not certain at the moment. I have to go back and look. But I think there might have been 4. So mankind came from more than one tribe or woman or covenant. There have been other covenants. And that's a whole nother story that we're going to go into. In depth. We got so many things to cover. But what is this all about? I mean, there is a school of thought. Well, I don't think it's a school of thought because I don't think most people even think about these things. They don't really know. Most people, I don't know anywhere this is talked about. Some book somewhere may scratch the surface somewhere. I don't know because I don't really read books. But I don't think this is a particular prevalent theory or teaching anywhere. But I will tell you this, that I've heard pieces of this, I don't know, floating around, maybe because somebody guessed or something, or perhaps they heard one of my videos some time ago and they've developed some ideas about this since then. I don't know, because before I started talking about it, I don't remember anybody ever bringing this up. But it appears that the ones who came to the earth, the third of the angels who fell, turns out to be only just 200 beings. 200. And they were what the Bible calls the Watchers or the Nephilim. But there were originally in the Bible, the book of Enoch tells you this, and it says this in the Sumerian tablets as well. There were 600 of them originally. So a third of that would be 200, and that's the number of these beings that fell and took wives, all whom they chose, and began to breed with humans. So really, whoever these individuals, these 200 are, if they're from some particular planet or race from another world or whatever, the angels or God's children or whoever they are, you can't say that wherever they came from, like let's say they came from Nibiru, right? I don't believe that. This is the prevailing concept because I don't think people understand what Nibiru means. And we'll get into that too, another subject. But it's not some planet or Planet X that's going to come barreling through and destroy the world. But although there's a connection, we were talking about the dragon, 7 heads and the 7 planets, and then the dragon lays an egg or has the all-seeing eyes watching over the earth, and that's the moon. Okay, we talked about that in a video, a couple videos ago. So it's all kind of related to Nibiru, but it's not exactly what you think. This is all symbolic. But wherever these 200 individuals came from, these angels, right? And in the Bible, we just say, oh, they're from heaven. They're angels. We don't know where heaven is. And then the Sumerian tablets and other ancient writings talk about planets and space astronauts and stuff coming to the world, and Enki being a scientist or something. I don't know. That's what Sitchin says. But, you know, I don't believe Sitchin gave us all the truth. I'm more and more aware of that as we go, because Sitchin came along just like Van Daniken. Get it? Van Daniken? Germanish or something? Was it Bavarian? I mean, Velenkowski, who wrote the book Worlds in Collision? Okay, I think it was all propaganda, right? These individuals from Bavaria teaching these new doctrines in the latter days, and we get all wrapped up into it and start believing it. All of it. So, we just found out not too long ago that, not the Dead Sea Scrolls. I know there's a guy named, what is his name? Daughtry? Sounds like the singer, so I get it mixed up. I don't watch other people's videos. I've seen a few, like somebody asked me about some guy named Jonathan Click just today. I get a lot of people asking me about him and others. And I just don't watch. I don't know. I don't really have much of an opinion because I don't watch their videos. You know, I don't have time to do all of that. But definitely we were misled about a few things. Sitchin's account in this whole Nibiru thing got blown out of proportion. He didn't tell us the whole truth. And there's an ulterior motive behind these individual Bavarians that come out and start financing people like Jehovah's Witnesses and Adventists and Herbert W. Armstrong and you know, L. Ron Hubbard, and takes over Hollywood and the Satanic Church and all these things that were being financed. There's ulterior motives. They started bringing it to everyone's attention about 50, 60 years ago that perhaps we were not created by our Father in heaven. You know, perhaps that there were aliens that came from other worlds, and you know, there's lots of truth in their books, but you see, they couldn't make a point. They couldn't get anybody interested in what they were saying if they didn't have some truth. But what they do is they preempt the truth. They know it's coming. The world's going to find out. We're digging up all these Sumerian tablets and stuff. And so they just preempt it by giving a lot of glitter and stuff that's not true and chaos, like they did with the, once Madame Blavatsky, you know, exposed a lot of bad things in the world, and you know, like spiritualism and false Christianity and stuff like that. So they had to counteract that with people like Steiner, again, Bavarian Steiner, and he comes out with all these teachings that are really just superfluous, not to the point, have nothing to do with anything we need to know. It just gets people and diverts their attention. But so these children that came to the earth were considered the sons of God or something, and they had relations with daughters of men. And we've got all this mythology, the Titans who fell from heaven and put in the bottomless pit and all that stuff. But even in Sitchin's more or less made up story, which I guess he must have tried to follow along, kind of. Holy moly, guys, my phone stopped because it says it's too hot. And this is probably going to shut off again because I was in the shade. I had to wait there for 10 minutes for it to cool down. So I don't know if I'll even be able to do this. I can't believe it's that hot that you can't run the camera on this phone. But so we'll try it again. I don't even know where we were. Just we were talking about Sitchin having, there's definitely conspiracy between him and Belenkowsky. Although again, a lot of the stuff that Belenkowsky said was true. So, I was talking about Daughtry. I don't know who he is, but does he has a channel. I guess he doesn't believe in God or something. I don't really know. I don't think he believes in the Bible. But I do know, I heard him say, because I went over one time and saw a little clip of it. Somebody showed me. And he was saying that the Dead Sea Scrolls have been proven to be fake. And I'm like, what is he saying? People start believing people. They think, well, if Jeff, I don't know if his name is Jeff, but anyway, this Daughtry guy, if he's saying that we can't believe in anything because it's all fake, and then this starts going over into other concepts like all of our history's fake and we didn't go to the moon, which, we probably didn't. So therefore we live on a flat earth and therefore, there's a Mandela effect and therefore, there's no divine being and nothing, no Jesus. We're all going to die, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure what their conclusion is. But it's just not true that the Dead Sea Scrolls are fake. There were the original scrolls that were found, 1947, are all, according to all the scholars, they're real. So the Damascus scroll and, pieces of the Isaiah scroll and, all the Dead Sea Scrolls, they're real. But there were little fragments that somebody turned in. I guess 16 fragments. Recently, they got some millions of dollars for it and everything. Those were forgery just because somebody was trying to cash in on the whole concept. And that's all forgery. But, so, no question, there are forgeries in the earth. But, no, the Bible's not false and the Dead Sea Scrolls is not a scam. However, individuals who don't know for sure what they're talking about, not that you have to always know everything you're talking, but at least you should tell people, look, this is a concept. I'm not saying this is the truth. Because unless you really know what you're talking about, I think it's not a good idea to tell people theories that you make up in your mind that just because you haven't done your research and you just don't believe in God anymore. So you want everyone else to give up their faith too. I'm sorry, Daughtry. I don't know. Maybe this will get back to you and you'll be mad at me. And look, I don't know what you're saying or teaching because I haven't seen. So forgive me, but that's just my first impression. But, so, we have to be careful. But that doesn't mean all of it's not true. Just because Sitchin and Donikin and, and all these individuals are coming out with all of this stuff that may not be absolutely correct. Remember, they were trying to preempt the truth. They knew that the wisdom was going to increase and knowledge would increase in the world and people were going to find out the truth, so they had to sponsor and finance a lot of chaos so that we don't know what we're talking about anymore. But, it's so hot. That tree is just turning brown. And look at the leaves are just wilting. Unbelievable. I used to say that all the time, but I don't like saying that anymore because I do believe, and I don't like to say I don't believe, so stop saying that word. Unless I say a funny thing like that, once in a while I'll say unbelievable just because I'm being silly, but we have to make sure our vocabulary is correct, because what comes out of our mouth is like, if the brother of the Lord James says, a little rudder, a very small rudder, can steer a very large ship. And the tongue, which is how we speak words, is a very small member in our body, but it can set the world on fire. So we have to speak only the words of truth and speak only from intention and from the will. Don't ever speak words that you don't know what they mean, or don't ever curse. And that doesn't mean say F-U-C-K or damn or anything like that. It means, well, damn actually is a curse because you're condemning someone. You should never condemn anyone. So don't say that word. But cursing isn't really just speaking words. It means to pronounce a negative curse upon things. You know. And we don't want to be damning anyone or anything. So that's what we have to be careful of. We have to be positive in our words and filled with truth. So we have to decide what we want in life. Not what we lust for, but what we need and really truly want. And then we have to speak that and only that. Make that with faith and with intention. Put a dream or a thought, a vision in our mind as to what we want. Hold that vision in our mind and speak that vision into reality. But the minute you start wavering, you start speaking other contradictory visions, it'll fall through. It won't work. And I've confirmed this many times in my life, and I live by this. I try to be positive, and sometimes you get real weak. Oh my goodness, guys. Camera shut off again. It's just too hot. It won't allow my camera to even work, so I let it cool down again, and now we're under the forest shade, and it'll probably stay on for a minute. But, I'm about to get a heat stroke. I mean, I'm sitting here dreaming of a beer, guys. And I don't really drink beer. I mean, I have. It's not that I don't, ever. But I seldom drink a beer. I'll drink a glass of wine in the evenings. Homemade wine that I make. But I need something cold. So I'm sitting here dreaming about getting back to the truck. Getting back to the cabin, which I'm not living there anymore because there's snakes that have taken over. But I'm getting back to my truck, and I'm going to go into town and grab some beer just to cool down. Some real cold beer. So that's how hot it is, guys. So anyway, I don't know where we were, but so many things I want to talk about. It seems like the best place to do that is when we're sitting down. We can collect our thoughts and not be getting hit with spiders and webs and heat strokes and dreaming of beer so where you can't concentrate. But I will try and give you a little bit of a synopsis of the things that we're going to be talking about here. We still haven't exhausted all the other series that we were. I think when we start a series on this channel, this is something I always say we're doing a series. It never ends, that one series kind of goes into another series. So we never really close the chapter on any series. So this is almost like a continuation. What happened? Oh, almost lost the trail. This is like a continuation, I think. Not sure where I'm at right now. I'm following a creek bed now. Oh my goodness, how in the world do I get lost like this? I don't walk out here all the time and the trail's starting to... Here it is. Get overgrown. But, so what are we talking about? What is the main point I wanted to... what is going to be the conclusion of this? Well, we're going to find out about the two deities, and we'll find out that one of them, or both of them, really, they're not gods. Okay, guys? There are no gods in the world. There is no such thing as God. Oh, what? You just said that Daughtry was wrong because... Well, let me clarify. God in English has come to mean something that is not true. Yes, there is an omnipotent living entity, which is mind. It pervades the universe. It's the creator. But this anthropomorphic guy with a beard up there that rules, sits on the throne, that doesn't exist. His name isn't God. And in the Bible, where people worshipped particular gods, like Yahweh, they didn't really have to say, oh, Yahweh is God. Like it's some thing, you know. It's a God. Why is it a God? Look at it, it's a God. It's got lightning bolts out of its eyes, you know. It can levitate rocks and create the world. It's not like that. Mind creates the world through its word, through the word of its intentions. But they used certain titles that were the names of certain of these fallen angels. So, Iya Inki, they worshipped, but he was just some being from some other planet, or you know, wherever these angels come from, whether it's a planet or this very planet that we live on in the future. Because remember, there's no time and space, and what God is now, man will become, and what man is now, God once was. And we are the children of the living deity. And that word just means divine nature. But our Father has a name, and our Divine Mother has a name. And there are other divine beings who have names. And so, God is a name, a Norse doctrine from the Scandinavians. And that was the particular deity. I think it really is the same as Woden, Godin, or Goten. And, you know, so they would always wear the horns on their head and stuff like that. You know, that doesn't necessarily mean they thought that was the only deity. It was like the father of certain family of these beings. And this is why in certain places they had different deities. In China they got this dragon. And remember, it's the dragon in the book of Revelation. You see a bear, that seems to be Russia. And the eagle's the United States. So maybe, you know, we can weed that out here in the video coming up. But, so there's different meanings, because the dragon, as I said, meant 7 planets, but it also, you know, is an emblem for certain countries. And the 200 million horsemen that are unloosed at the river Euphrates, if that's a literal army, only China has the capacity to have a 200 million man army. And they are from the east. It says the kings of the east. So there's a little more indication there. But if you'll notice that China is not a dark-skinned race. And it seems like all the ruling powers for a long time have been lighter-skinned peoples. Not in the ancient times necessarily, but in these modern times. So, some have speculated that Adam may have been, you know, his name means red or ruddy or some. Now some will say, oh, that means he shows blood in the face. He's white. He's light-skinned. He's blushing. It's red blood. Well, I don't think so. I don't think that's what it means. We know who the Redskins are. But Adam was made from the dust of the earth, from this earth. But there were always these individuals, these deities, these fallen ones that came down. One of them, there was some question that whether Noah was the son of the gods because he was white. So there's indication, there's proofs we can use. They would definitely indicate that the intruders were white. Now, right here, let me put this out there. Does that mean that all the Nephilim were all white and all white people are bad? No. There were more than one time that individuals came to... Remember, Jesus was there and he was in Adam too. And Jesus came for all nations, tribes, and tongues. I'm going to shut this off and get me some water and I'll get back to you guys. Okay, guys, well, I I ended up I went ahead and went to the store, and I already got me a beer, and I'm sitting here, and the sun's kind of going down a little bit, so I'm a little cooler now, and I feel a little better, and I'm going to finish this video. Sorry about that, but, so we were talking about, Adam being ready and Noah being suspected of a child of the gods because he was white. And there are more indications than that. Okay? I'm just doing this in a nutshell. We'll talk about this in depth in coming videos. But let's suffice it to say that there's quite a bit of evidence that says that the gods, okay, which aren't gods at all, friends. This is what I'm trying to tell you. They're not like the creator of the universe. You're the creator of the universe. If you have a conscious mind and you have a self-awareness, the universe is evolving. The universe is one. So, the divine Father of heaven, the real, the almighty, true almighty, doesn't believe in racism, doesn't believe in law or lording it over others and controlling one. He's there ultimately as the great lover. He's just constantly loving and giving, and because of him we are here, because of that light, because of that mind. And he blew that mind into us, and we are in his image, in the divine image. We have love. We have that Christ in us. And we have the Holy Spirit that will teach us all things. We don't need a man to teach us. But Yahweh didn't agree. And Yahweh is a racist. And Yahweh has a particular favorite amongst individuals on earth, and he's not afraid to say he's a God of war, and he's the God of vengeance, and his name is jealous, and he's angry, and he wants to kill everybody. So, we were saying that there's indication that these 200 beings were what the Bible's talking about when it says the sons of God. And the daughters of men is the daughters of Adam. And so even in Genesis 6:4, it says that they were scary. We find in the line of Cain, there are individuals who taught men to live in tents. Is there anything wrong with that? I don't know. Not necessarily. Of course not. There were some of these angels that taught men how to play instruments. Anything wrong with that? I don't think so. Music and, we're supposed to love the Lord. David danced and the apostles sang hymns. Jesus sang hymns. But what did they use? Why were they teaching man to make musical instruments? Well, because they were preparing man for propaganda in the modern song music industry. There's nothing wrong with music, melodious sounds and hymns, encouraging. Why do you say something over and over and over again? Because it's going to be impressed upon your mind. That's what a hymn is for. I love the Lord, I love the Lord, I love the Lord. Be courageous, be courageous, be courageous. That's what a song is about. I love, love, love. Love, love, love. That's why John Lennon is the best. Okay? Love is all there is. But when you use that tool, when you're teaching mankind music because you want them to have propaganda, because you want them to propagate your lies, that's a problem. Tents, homes, log cabins, places to live, they're wonderful concepts. We need to live. We have to live. But when we start making mansions and charging people 9% interest, telling them they need gold-plated toilet seats and marble bathtubs with jets that shoot on the lower vac while the warm water comes out of the tap and a cool breeze comes over the air and the propaganda music, boom, 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 comes on in the background, and boom, the lights are, the candles are lit, and your maid comes in and pours you a glass of wine. Okay, this is enticing. Nothing wrong with pouring you a glass of wine. There's nothing wrong with a home. There's nothing wrong with music. But the reason they introduced it is because they could lull us to sleep. They could say, if you want this happiness, this good life, you got to sign at the bottom line. And oh, don't forget your music. Boom, boom, boom. And the lyrics are, I'm going to rape women and hurt people and bust your lip and that kind of thing. You see, or we got to go and watch television. I remember I told you guys this the other day. When I was growing up, we had 3 or 4 different kinds of shows. One was doctor shows. One was lawyer shows. Mom and Dad liked Perry Mason or what was that lady's name? My mother's favorite, Angela, or I can't remember. It was a book, series of books that Mom used to read. But anyway, so lawyer shows, doctor shows, police shows like Chip or Magnum PI or that kind of thing, investigative, FBI, CIA, undercover. They want you to want to be an undercover. You got to succeed. You got to have 20/20 vision. It's like being a Navy SEALs. People love that and dream of it, and they become that, and you never hear about them because it's secret. Well, they're living the good life. They're living in penthouses up of the Las Vegas or New York, making a lot of money, doing classified things. What? Bumping, knocking people off, or spying on you, or what? Oh, but they think it's important work, and they can't tell you. It's classified. Well, this is why the devils from the very beginning started teaching man this kind of stuff. But anyway, so there is definitely indication that the deities that came here were white. Now, there were only 200 of them. Were they white, or were they reptilians, or were they, look, they're not the reptilians. That's a different group. The reptilians is human beings who evolved for thousands of years. We're talking about some individuals that came from another realm, the angels from above. And they began to set up a kingdom upon the earth. The Sumerian tablets tell you about this. The Bible tells you about this. But most Christians have never been told that he set up a government over the earth. And it's called the Old Covenant. Jesus came, he didn't advocate that at all. He said, your father's the devil, he's a liar, and he's a murderer. And he's a slanderer, you're not a sinner. My Father's love, just forgive one another when they make mistakes. It was a whole different deal. Love, love, love. Do unto others as you have them do unto you. That's the whole law. There are no other laws. The only law is love. So, because we find out that 200 beings might have been white, and they may have had relations with the daughters of men and produced individuals, a race, perhaps, or a group of individuals that call themselves the chosen ones or something, or whatever. That doesn't make it true. Jesus also was born of a virgin. His father was the divine being. He came from above. And there are other places in the Bible where this happened. Marduk ended up taking to wife Enoch's daughter. and producing a line of individuals. So there were more than one time that this happened, and we don't know how many times this happened, because the flood came to kill all the world, and only supposedly 8 people survived, and yet after the flood, you still have these individuals that are like giants in the earth. So we don't know. But what we do know is there are prophecies that talk about the 2 seeds that are in the earth, and they'll be here all the time that the earth is here, until the end of this age. And we also have indication that Adam has to be, first of all, has to be indigenous. He was made from the dust of the earth. And the word dust or earth means red. So when it says that Adam is red, it doesn't mean blood or blushing or white. It means earth. Adam doesn't mean red, it means red earth. It means this earth. It means, in other words, if I say, I am from, and then I give a name that describes something, I'm saying I'm that something, and not the name that describes it. So when you're saying you're red, you're not saying you're red, you're saying you're earth. You're using the name that we call the earth. Edomite, remember Esau has also had the name Edom. The Edomites. That means the red. He had red curly hair. And that's why he was called that. It didn't mean that he was white, although he might have been. It doesn't know. It doesn't say. If he had red hair, he might have been. But what this word means is an earthling. All right? Somebody from the earth. It had nothing to do with what color he was. But we know he was from the earth. He was indigenous. And we know that this world, the individuals on this world, evolved from this world. This is their culture. This is their earth. These other beings came from above. And this is why the Apostle Paul talked about there's going to be an adoption. We're not being adopted into the divine nature. Everyone in the universe will eventually partake of the divine nature. The dog is going to partake of the divine nature. We're all evolving toward that. But there is a particular race of people that came to the world, not just once, not the fallen ones, but also through Jesus, who came to the world to redeem the world with his blood, to give the blood that will save us. And he had a wife named Mary Magdalene, the church. This is our salvation. The church is our salvation. That covenant is our salvation. The covenant he made with Mary. And Mary and Jesus were in Adam from the founding of the world. We described that and explained that in a video several days ago. Go back and look at that. We can't go through it now again. But all of us, we have all of this in us. We have the ego, the fallen nature. We have the higher nature. And we have Mother Sophia within us, because she breathed her mind, epinomia, forethought into Adam. She didn't breathe it herself, but she put it into Adam by instructing Yahweh to do that, even though he didn't understand he had that because he was created by her. And Jesus was there also as the serpent who was condemned by Yahweh to go to hell. He was condemned last of all. And most severely of all, because that is our DNA, and that is the mind. Here's the difference between the two minds. Okay, Sophia is the spirit that's in you, a mind, the spiritual mind. Okay, thought that can reason in the higher comprehension. But that serpent mind is the lower physical. Now, we've said before, it's not carnal. It doesn't mean it's bad. Yahweh cursed the serpent and it became bad. The nature became wild and ferocious and carnivorous. But The physical nature was created by our Father. Jesus had a body. Touch me. A spirit hath not flesh and bones as you see that I have. Jesus raised up his body and he gave it wings. So there's nothing wrong with the body, and the body is immortal, eternal. And that's why we're going to get our immortal bodies, that white robe. The white robe's been waiting for us. That's our robe. But, so, the lower mind is that carnal nature. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the fact that the universe has been evolving, not because the universe came about through a polywog or a big bang. Nothing like that at all. The universe is one. The universe is the entire whole. And the divine being is in all, through all, and above all. But in the whole united being, in the one monad, there are all the variables and all the quantums, the quantitative pieces and shapes and forms and all the things in the universe. I call them variables. You can split it up and down, left and right, soft and cold, hard, cold and hot, everything. Male and female. You split the universe. Now they're separated. They got to become one again through understanding, through love. But the universe is one. So, the indigenous peoples, listen, don't think of this in terms of race. It has nothing to do with race. One thing we know for sure, the New Testament teaches, and we're not Old Testament believers, we're New Testament believers. And the New Testament tells us that our divine Father made from one man all nations on the face of the earth. We're not racist. We're not racist at all. Okay? But all of these different groups of people should be able to love and live together in unity. We're all fathers. We're all children of one father and one mother. But Yahweh wasn't like that. And so Yahweh said, I'm sending down my, remember, Enki, his son was Marduk. And Marduk lived on Mars, and he had these angels that were mining the earth. 200 of them fell. And Marduk himself took a woman from the earth. And Marduk is, in the Bible, we call him Nimrod. And if that's not the same person, at least Nimrod was named after him. So that is the ruler of Babylon. And that's why the Bible talks about this is the kingdom of this world, Babylon. And they rule. And that is Yahweh. Marduk's father was Yahweh. Iyah, Enki. And so Marduk was his heir, his Messiah, Nimrod. They got, to this day, in our day and age, they found DNA from Nimrod, and they think they're going to clone it or something. I don't know. That's another subject, the Antichrist, and we can talk about that. But that may be what the Apostle Paul's talking about when he says that the creation, obviously the indigenous creation, is groaning and in pain until now. Until for the revealing of the sons of God. Who are the real sons of God? This is what's going to be revealed. Because these individuals that came down, these fallen ones, they may have been officially, technically, sons of God by birth. They fell. And they tried to put into slavery other people that were children of God. And so, Christ being from that area up there, from the divine one who came down, much the same way the fallen angels came down, but not for the same reason, but he came to redeem us, to get us out from under the power of the wicked one, because we had taken and been brought under some contract, some legal contract by this individual, the adversary, these 200 that fell. So the same people, Anu, in the Sumerian tablets, was not happy at all with those 200 individuals. And he banished them. And Jesus stood there at that Mount Hermon. At the base, there's a big hole with a bottomless pit. And that's a temple to Pan. And Jesus stood there and says, the gates of Hades, right here. This is what's always been known as the gates of Hades. It will not prevail against my kingdom. So Jesus came down, born of a virgin. And he had a covenant with a woman named Mary. But it wasn't the same covenant. It was a covenant of love, not of slavery. This is what we want to talk about. They had children. They went to France. The Catholic Church came in, and there were inquisitions, and they were scattered into all the earth. They went to Africa. They went to America. They went to everywhere around the world, let's just say. China and everywhere. Australia. And so in 1800, 1500, 1600, all these years from 1400 on, basically, the Europeans, these white individuals, run by Yahweh's law, which was the Catholic Church at that time, they had apostatized and gone back to Yahweh. And they went by the rules of Yahweh, and they believed in the God Yahweh, and they believed in law. And so they went out and they had these inquisitions and they dispersed mankind, and they said they had to either convert to their religion or be killed, and many of them fled. Some of them fled through Morocco to Africa, some fled to China, some fled to America, some fled all around the world. And over these last several hundred years, this seed is planted. The Bible talks about in Hosea, I will plant them, the children of Israel, the lost tribes. They were lost. And there, where it was said, ye are not my children, there shall the sons of the living deity be. That living one is the eternal divine Father in heaven. So, there is no racism in Christianity. It's neither Jew nor Greek, male nor female. We're not under that old law. But there is racism, and religion did sponsor it, and so did the church. But that was when they were apostate, and they were following after the Old Testament. So, there are groups of individuals out there that are trying to understand this. And I don't begrudge them for feeling a little persecuted. The indigenous races have been persecuted beyond a doubt. Captain Hook went to the Indonesian area around and got out of his boat with I don't know how many of his men, 200 men or something, get off the boats. I think they distributed some blankets or whatever, and then they got in their boat and left. And when they came back a short while later, everybody in Indonesia was gone. They wiped them out with smallpox or polio or something. Coronado went to America and made a long trip up through Mexico and up around through America and back. And then after he left, they all died. And by the time he came over with Columbus, there were hardly any individuals here. They were all living in tents, and we called them savages, but they were refugees because they had already been massacred by some deadly disease. And this is their modus operandus. It has been for a long time. They first come in and they take you, most of you out with disease, and then they come back and mop up with actual war. And that will be their plan here. Anyway, I'm well over an hour. But what I want to tell you is there were some very bad people that were white. But there are some very good people that are white. And they're just people, just like you. We're all just people. But these first group of people, their religion is they worship a particular deity who is a very fallen deity, who is the God who made the laws and the government and the slavery in this world. But you think, well, they got one strike against them. I don't like white people. Okay, well, that same planet sent down Jesus. But we'll cover more of that, and we'll talk about the true nature of this world and who we really are, and why we're really here, and what we're really doing here. It's going to be very interesting. But no, the children of Israel are not one race. They're not just black people. Some are teaching that. Some people are teaching that they're only white people, and that's not true. It's easy for people to make up, to find verses to prove whatever they want to believe. So we don't teach what we want to believe. We want to teach what is the truth, and we should want to believe the truth. And it will set you free, my friends. I'm David Vos. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great one.